Here's an RGB image of some locomotives opened up in Photoshop CS6. The image is 1200 pixels wide, and it was a suit of 4-inch wide print, that's about 100mm, in a glossy magazine. The reason for that is a glossy magazine requires 150 lines per inch of ink dots. Using the multiply by 2 rule of thumb, we take 150 lines per inch, multiply it by 2, which gives us 300 pixels per inch, which is what the resolution should be in the Photoshop image to do the print from. Because it's a 1200 pixel wide image, we divide that by 300 pixels per inch, and it gives us 4, that is 4 inches wide. First thing we need to do is convert this thing to CMYK. Up here in the image menu, go to mode, go to CMYK color. Just click OK. And if we look in the channels palette, we have cyan, magenta, yellow and black. They're the component channels that make up this image, which is now in CMYK color space. Next, what we need to do is to split these channels up into independent images. We're going to do that by going into the channels palette. In the top right hand corner, its little sub-menu, we're going to go to split channels. What we end up with is 4 independent grayscale images. Now, depending on how your Photoshop is set up, you may not see them in separate windows like this. You may only see one window and a number of tabs running across the top. It might be easier for you to tear the tabs off, so you do have them open in independent windows. If you're following along in the tutorial, we're up to step number 7, and what we want to do is to actually convert these things from grayscale into bitmapped images. So what we're going to do is go up here to the image menu and go mode, and we're going to go to bitmap, and this is on the cyan image. Bitmap, we decided before we needed 300 pixels per inch, and the method we're going to use is halftone screen. So click OK. We're going for a high quality magazine print, 150 lines per inch, and the angle that we want for cyan is going to be 75 degrees. The shape of the ink dots that we're trying to simulate is round. Click OK. Now what has happened is that this image is now no longer a grayscale, but it's made out of a number of black pixels on a white background. Just zooming in with a magnifying glass, and we can see all those black pixels. They're simulating the ink dots. If this was done for real, they wouldn't be square pixels, they'd be round dots of ink. Step number 9, we want to go to the magenta image. So just go for magenta, and we're going to do exactly the same thing again. It's a grayscale image at the moment. We're going to go to image, mode, bitmap, output 300 pixels per inch using the halftone screen as our method. This time we want to have our angle at 15 degrees. So our magenta screen is going to be rotated 15 degrees, 150 line per inch frequency. That's our screen rolling, and the shape of our dots is round. Click OK. Let's go to yellow this time. This is step number 10, and we want to convert this yellow grayscale image to a bitmap. So go image, mode, bitmap, 300 pixels per inch, halftone screen, 150 lines per inch, and this time we're going to go for 0 degrees for our screen angle. Click OK. Lastly, that leaves us with the black plate. So step number 11, black plate, image, mode, bitmap, 300 pixels per inch using the halftone screen, frequency 150 lines per inch, and the angle is going to be 45 degrees using the round shape. Just zoom in there and have a look at that. Same thing again, just made out of black pixels. Now what we need to do is to convert all of these back into grayscale images. So let's go to the cyan plate. Zoom back out again, looks like that. Image, Mode, Grayscale. Where it says size ratio, we're just going to go 1. We just want it to be the same size that it was before. Click OK. Now if I zoom in, even though it's a grayscale, we're still only going to see black pixels on a white background, because that's what we had before when we converted to a bitmap. So there's no shades of grey in here, even though it is actually a grayscale image. Just zoom out again, and I'm going to work my way through the other plates. So magenta plate, same thing again, image, mode, grayscale, size ratio 1, click OK. Yellow plate, same thing again, image mode, grayscale, size ratio 1, and finally the black plate, image mode, grayscale, size ratio 1, click OK. Now what we need to do is actually remove this white background, and we're going to do that with a magic eraser tool. So I'm down to step 14 now. What I'm going to do is start off with the cyan plate, and I'm going to zoom in a fair way so I can see lots of white. I'm going to go over and I'm going to grab the magic eraser tool from my toolbox. Magic eraser tool. I'm going to go to its settings, which I've got down the bottom of the screen here. The tolerance I've got as 10, and everything is unticked. The opacity is 100%. I want to click in the white area to get rid of it. So let's just click in the middle of the screen in a white area, and we should see the checkerboard pattern behind, which tells us that we have a transparent background. So all we're left with now is just black pixels on a transparent background. We're going to do the same for the other 3 plates. So let's go to the magenta plate. I might just zoom in a little bit more so I can see an area of white fairly clearly, so I don't accidentally click on black. Just click on the white area. I'm going to go to the yellow plate. I'm going to zoom right in. Just grab one of those white pixels. Click on that. As we zoom out a bit, hopefully we've got a transparent checkerboard happening in the background. It looks okay. Lastly, black plate. Quite a bit of white in this, so we just click on that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to save this black plate as our master file, because we're going to combine all the other plates into this one. First I need to convert it into CMYK. So I'm going to go to Image, Mode, CMYK Color. Click OK. I'm going to go to my Layers palette, and I'm going to rename what's come up as Layer 0. I'm going to rename it to Black 45 degrees, just so I know what it is. Just going to save it. Save as. And I'm going to call this Separation Simulation Master. Click OK. Now what I need to do is to copy and paste in the other plates. Go down to the cyan plate. It's going to zoom out, Command 0. I need to select all of this. So I can either go up here and go select all, or I can use the keyboard shortcut Command A. Either way, I should get the dotted line right around the edge of the image to show me that I've got a selection happening. Then I'm going to copy all that. I can either go Edit Menu Copy, or I can go Command C. That puts it in memory. And I want to paste it into the black plate. So let's go to the black plate, which is now called Separation Simulation Master. Used to be my black plate. Now I need to paste what I copied from the cyan image into this master image, but I need to do it very, very carefully. Instead of going Command V, I'm going to go Shift Command V, because that is called Paste in Place. Shift Command V. What it does, it puts the cyan image directly over the top in the same spot as it was before, so it's not offset or anything, it's just exactly where it should be. I'm going to go back to the layers menu, and this was cyan, renaming this layer, and the angle of that was 75 degrees. Let's go to the magenta plate next. I'm going to go select all, or I could do Command A, Command C to copy it back to my master, and I'm going to go Shift Command V and paste in place. I'm going to rename that layer. I'm going to call it magenta, 15 degrees. And lastly, I want to do the yellow one. So let's go down to yellow, Command A, selects all, Command C to copy. Flick over to the master one, Shift Command V, paste in place. Let's rename that layer yellow, 0 degrees. Probably a good time to save it. We're now down to step 26, and what we're going to do in the layers palette is we're going to add a new layer. We're going to stick it down the bottom. So I'll just click the Make New Layer gadget, drag that layer down to the bottom, and I'm going to call that Paper. Double click on the name. It's called Paper. I'm going to grab the paint bucket, and I'm just going to click anywhere in here. I have the paper layer selected, so it should fill that with white. Make sure that you use white and not any other colours. Go over to your colour chip. If you need to, you can press D on your keyboard to default it to black and white, or you can use this tiny little gadget down here which says default foreground and background colours. So I'm going to click in here. The image appears to go a lot darker, but if I turn off the CMYK, we should be left with a white background. Just turn all those back on for the moment. Step 27, what I want to do is to add a blank layer underneath each of the CMYKs. So I've got paper selected at the moment. Just click a new layer, and I've got layer 1. If I click on the black layer and go new layer, it'll put the new layer above black and under cyan. Let's click on cyan. I want to make a new layer on top of it but under magenta. Let's come in as layer 3. Let's click on magenta, and it'll put a new layer on top of itself and underneath yellow. Click the new layer gadget. So we've got these extra layers. Just going to drag that down a bit so we can see them all. All these other windows that we had before, we can just close them off, we don't need them. So don't save that yellow plate, don't need that. Don't save that magenta plate. And don't save the cyan plate. So all we're left with is our separation simulation master, which is now multi-layered. It started off life as our black plate. Now what we need to do is overlay some colour onto these things. So what we're going to do is start with the cyan plate. And I'm going to double click on the right hand side just to the right of the name, so it brings up layer styles. I'm going to click colour overlay, and I'm going to go up to this little grey colour chip next to where it says blend mode normal. I'm going to click on that. Brings up the colour picker. I'm going to colour libraries, and what I want is this Pantone plus CMYK coated. It's quite a list of colour libraries here, but this is the one we want, Pantone plus CMYK coated. And I'm going to select up the top of this rainbow slider. It goes down through all the Pantone colours. I'm going to go right to the top of that, and I'm going to select Pantone Process Cyan. And I'm going to click OK. Notice the sky went blue. Click OK again. I'm going to do the same for magenta. Double click on that. Colour overlay. click on it again, go to the color chip, which looks grey at the moment, color libraries, still in Pantone plus CMYK coded. Let's push the slider on the rainbow right to the top. Magenta, click OK, click OK. Now we've got a bit of magenta into our image, as well as a bit of cyan. Notice we've got FX written here now to show us that we've actually applied an effect. Double click on the yellow, color overlay, click on that, click on the color chip, color libraries, up to the top of the slider here, yellow, Pantone process yellow, click OK, click OK, and I'm going to do the same thing with the black. Double click on that, color overlay, click on the color chip, color libraries, Pantone plus CMYK coded, push the slider all the way to the top of the rainbow. There's Pantone process black. Select that, click OK, click OK. It's going to extend my layers palette a bit so you can see everything in there. Now at this stage, even though the Pantone colours have been applied to the relevant CMYK layers, we can't see the colours in the layers thumbnails. So what we need to do is to make sure all our layers are visible, all the little eye icons are turned on. So we're going to select the black layer. I'm going to hold down the shift key. I'm going to select layer 1. This layer 1 was an empty layer that we made before. Select those two together, and I'm going to combine those two together using Command E. Up here in the top right hand corner of the layers palette, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to merge layers, the ones that we have selected. We've selected black and we've selected layer 1, so we're going to merge those two together. Command E is the keyboard shortcut. Now you'll notice that all the effects have disappeared, and that empty layer 1 has also disappeared. Doesn't seem to be any change here in the thumbnail because it's black after all. Let's try it with cyan. Hold down the shift key and select the empty layer 2. I'm going to go Command E, and hopefully we'll see the thumbnail actually look cyan in colour. There we go. Do the same with magenta and layer 3. That's the empty layer immediately underneath it. Command E, and yellow and layer 4. Command E. If you're following along on the tutorial, we're up to step 42. What we need to do is to change the blend mode of each of these CMYK layers. Currently they're on normal. We want to change each of them to multiply. It's the yellow. Let's go magenta. Change it from normal to multiply. Same with cyan. And lastly the black. You can see our image is taking shape. Let's just turn all these layers off for the moment. This is what we'd start off with. Obviously a piece of blank paper. Now some printing presses would actually print in a different order for what we've got here. So we're just going to drag black up to the top. Paper would go through the press, and the cyan ink would be laid down first. Then magenta would be laid on top of that, followed by yellow, followed by black. If we zoom in and have a look at this close up, we should be able to see patterns of dots. Here in the roof, in the sky, the rosette pattern of CMYK dots is actually quite clear, even in this simulation. Just remember that if this was a real print, we wouldn't have a pattern of square pixels, we'd actually have a pattern of circular ink dots of various diameters. But overall, this is what we'd see when the paper came out the other end of the printing press. Save that and we're done.